I never saw it coming until it was almost too late. They fired me after I created their billion-dollar drug. For 15 years, I gave everything to Nexora Pharmaceuticals, sacrificing weekends, relationships, and my personal life to develop Neurovance XR. Then Marcus Harrington swept in as our new CEO. He didn't care about helping patients, he only saw dollar signs. Within months, I found myself escorted out of the building, my life's work stolen, with a pathetic 3-month severance package. Marcus even had the nerve to appear on television taking credit for my research. What he never bothered to check was that I had secretly filed my own patent on the key delivery mechanism. He thought he had taken everything from me. He was wrong. Now I'm back to reclaim what's mine, and I won't stop until he loses everything he stole from me. I recognized Marcus Harrington for what he was the moment the board introduced him as our new CEO. Where Dr. Chen, our founder, had worn rumpled lab coats and spoke passionately about healing people, Marcus arrived in tailored Italian suits, speaking only of market cap and shareholder value. I had seen his type before, finance-bred vultures who acquired innovative companies only to strip them for parts. Dr. Vega, he said during our first meeting, his smile never reaching his eyes. Your reputation precedes you. 15 years with Nexora, correct? Impressive loyalty. The way he said loyalty made it sound like a weakness. Within weeks, my research budget was temporarily adjusted. My team meetings were increasingly attended by Marcus's people, MBA types who understood nothing about biochemistry but took copious notes. Security protocols changed. Lab access became restricted, even for me. I was not surprised. I had built Nexora's research division from nothing into the industry powerhouse it had become. Our new drug, Neurovance XR, was poised to revolutionize treatment for neurodegenerative diseases. The market potential was in the billions. Of course, Marcus wanted me gone, after he secured my research. What surprised me was how many of my colleagues could not see it coming. You are being paranoid, Elise, said David from analytical chemistry. Marcus is just modernizing operations. I did not argue. Instead, I quietly began taking precautions. I meticulously documented my work on the proprietary delivery mechanism that made Neurovance XR so revolutionary. Then I visited Patricia Wu, a brilliant patent attorney I had met at a conference. The company owns your research, she warned. Not all of it, I replied. Not the key component I developed using my private resources. As I suspected, Marcus began isolating me. Important meetings were accidentally rescheduled without informing me. Junior researchers were suddenly presenting my findings to the board. When I confronted him, his response was calculated indifference. Dr. Vega, perhaps after 15 years, it is time to let the next generation take the spotlight. I smiled and nodded, already executing my contingency plan. The morning security escorted me to Marcus's office. I wore my best suit, navy blue, crisp and professional. I knew what was coming. Marcus sat behind his massive desk, flanked by a nervous HR representative and the company's legal counsel. A manila folder lay centered precisely on his desk. Dr. Vega, he began with rehearsed solemnity. Nexora Pharmaceuticals is undergoing strategic restructuring. Unfortunately, your position has been eliminated, effective immediately. I said nothing, just watched him speak. Your contributions have been valued, he continued, sliding the folder toward me. We have prepared a generous severance package. 3 months' salary contingent upon signing our standard non-disclosure and non-compete agreements. 3 months, after 15 years building this company from nothing. We will need your badges and devices, the HR representative added softly. Security will escort you to collect personal items from your office. And my research? I asked, my voice perfectly steady. Marcus's smile tightened. All research conducted at Nexora facilities remains company property, as per your employment contract. I nodded once, gathering my purse. Of course. As security walked me out, I passed the glass-walled conference room where Marcus was already briefing my team. Through the glass, I heard snippets. Accelerate development, market advantages, billions in potential revenue. My team looked shocked by my absence, but they would adapt. They were brilliant scientists. What they were not was cynical enough to see the corporate game being played. At home that evening, I spread my personal documents across my dining table. Among them was U.S. patent application, JATJR 78-291-437, filed 6 months earlier under my name, not Nexora's. The application covered the novel lipid nanoparticle delivery system that made Neurovance XR uniquely effective, the crown jewel of the research. I poured myself a glass of the expensive Cabernet I had been saving for a special occasion. In a way, this was one. I had just watched Marcus Harrington make the biggest mistake of his career. He thought he had taken everything from me. He had not checked thoroughly enough. For 2 months, I disappeared. To anyone watching, I was a disgraced former executive licking my wounds. In reality, I was laying groundwork. I rented a small office in an unremarkable building downtown under an LLC unconnected to my name. There, I meticulously built my case with Patricia Wu, who relished the complexity of the situation. "Your documentation is impeccable," she said, reviewing my lab notes. "The independent patent application was perfectly timed. You developed the key delivery system on your own time with your own resources." I monitored Nexora's public announcements obsessively. As expected, they accelerated the Neurovance timeline. Marcus held press conferences touting the groundbreaking delivery system that would change the landscape of neurodegenerative disease treatment. Their stock climbed steadily with each announcement. Not once did anyone mention my name. I used part of my meager severance to hire a private investigator who discovered Marcus had done this before, twice. At both previous companies, key research, personnel were pushed out just before major product launches. Both times, the scientists lacked the foresight I had had. 4 former Nexora colleagues reached out in those months. I met with each one, gauging their loyalty. Dr. Sarah Lynn, my former deputy, was particularly valuable. "They have changed nothing about your delivery system," she confided. "They are moving forward exactly as you designed it, just faster and with fewer safety protocols." "And the patent search?" I asked. "Cursory at best. Legal says they own everything since it was developed at Nexora." I nodded, sharing nothing of my own patent application. I also reached out to Michael Deering, a venture capitalist who had been burned by Marcus in a previous company. Our lunch was brief but productive. "You have what you need to destroy him?" he asked bluntly. "Everything," I confirmed. "Then I am in. Just tell me what you need." By the end of the second month, Nexora announced FDA fast-track approval for Neurovance XR, projecting first-year sales of $4.8 billion. Analysts praised Marcus's visionary leadership. The stock hit an all-time high. The timing was perfect. My patent was approved on a Tuesday morning. By afternoon, Patricia had prepared comprehensive legal documents, asserting my exclusive rights to the delivery system technology that made Neurovance XR viable. That evening, as Marcus accepted an Innovator of the Year award at a glittering industry gala, my team was executing a carefully orchestrated plan. At precisely 9 p.m., identical packages were delivered to every Nexora board member, the FDA approval committee, the top 20 institutional shareholders, 3 key financial journalists. Each package contained irrefutable evidence, my patent documentation, laboratory evidence proving Nexora was using my protected technology, and a cease and desist letter demanding immediate negotiation. At 11:42 p.m., my phone rang. "What the hell is this?" Marcus's voice had lost its smooth corporate polish. "Good evening, Marcus. I assume you have received my documentation." "This is corporate espionage. We will have you arrested." I laughed, softly. "No, Marcus. This is patent law. Your legal team failed to conduct proper due diligence. You are manufacturing a drug using my proprietary technology." "Silence, then. What do you want? Money? Name your price." "I do not want your money. Marcus, I want control." The next morning, Nexora stock opened 22% lower as rumors spread. By midday, trading was temporarily halted after falling 38%. Emergency board meetings were called. The FDA announced it was reviewing new information regarding Neurovance XR. Media outlets ran with the story. Patent dispute threatens billion-dollar drug launch, and former research director claims ownership of key technology. Marcus appeared on financial news, looking haggard, dismissing the claims as baseless and opportunistic. Meanwhile, Michael Deering was quietly meeting with key shareholders, explaining the situation and outlining our proposed solution. Leadership, change, and a new direction for Nexora. By week's end, 3 board members had privately reached out to me. The company's future hung in the balance, and for the first time in months, I held all the cards. The emergency shareholder meeting was called for 9 a.m. on a crisp autumn Monday. I arrived 30 minutes early, accompanied by Patricia, Michael Deering, and, to everyone's surprise, Dr. James Chen, Nexora's original founder. Marcus had not expected to see me there. The shock on his face was momentarily visible before he composed himself, straightening his tie as he approached. "This is highly irregular," he murmured, attempting to reassert control. "You have no standing to be present at this meeting." "Actually," interjected board member Eleanor Phillips, "Dr. Vega was explicitly invited by the board." The large conference room filled quickly. Institutional investors, board members, executive leadership, all avoiding eye contact with Marcus, whose traditional seat at the head of the table had been conspicuously filled by the board chairman. The chairman called the meeting to order and addressed the situation directly. "As you are all aware, we face an unprecedented crisis. Our flagship product contains technology apparently patented independently by Dr. Vega. Our legal team has confirmed the validity of this patent. The FDA has suspended approval pending resolution. Our stock has lost 62% of its value in 10 days. Marcus interjected. "We have options. We can fight this in court, develop a workaround." "A legal battle would take years," Patricia stated, calmly, "during which Neurovance cannot be brought to market. A workaround is not feasible. The delivery system is fundamental to the drug's efficacy." The chairman nodded. "Dr. Vega has presented terms for resolution." All eyes turned to me. For 15 years, I had worked in laboratories, far from boardrooms and power plays. But in that moment, I felt nothing but clarity. "My terms are simple," I said. 1. I return to Nexora as Chief Executive Officer. 2. Dr. Chen returns as Chairman of the Board. 3. We rededicate Nexora to its original mission, creating medicines that save lives, not just generate profits. The room erupted in murmurs. "This is extortion," Marcus snapped, face flushing. "No," corrected Michael Deering. "It is negotiation from a position of strength. Something you should understand, Marcus." The vote took less than 20 minutes. The outcome was never really in doubt. The shareholders wanted to salvage their investments. The board wanted to avoid personal liability. Everyone needed Neurovance XR to reach the market. As Marcus was escorted from the building, experiencing the same walk of shame he had forced upon me months earlier, he hissed, "You planned this from the beginning." "No, Marcus. You created this situation. I simply ensured I was not your victim." 6 months later, I stood in the same laboratory where I had spent most of my career, watching FDA officials conduct their final review of Neurovance XR. The approval came through that afternoon. In my new office, Marcus's old space redecorated, to remove all traces of his presence, I met with our newest research fellows, bright young scientists drawn to Nexora's renewed reputation for integrity and innovation. "The delivery system you developed is revolutionary," said one young woman. "What made you think to patent it independently?" I considered her question carefully. "Scientific discovery requires protection," I replied, "not just from competitors, but sometimes from within. Never forget that your most valuable asset is your intellect. Guard it carefully." As they left, I glanced at the framed patent on my wall, the small detail that changed everything. On my desk sat the latest industry journal with the cover story. Nexora Renaissance: How Elise Vega Transformed a Company in Crisis. Marcus Harrington was now teaching at a mid-tier business school, his reputation in the industry shattered. I never spoke his name again. Some might call what I did revenge. I prefer to think of it as correction. The company was returned to its original mission. Patients would receive a life-changing medication, and I reclaimed what was rightfully mine. Sometimes justice and vengeance look remarkably similar. The spotlight felt foreign as I accepted the Breakthrough Innovation Award at the annual BioPharm conference. 1 year earlier, Marcus had stood on this same stage, accepting the award in my name without a single acknowledgement of my existence. "This award belongs to my entire team at Nexora," I said into the microphone. Science is never a solitary endeavor. I scanned the audience and spotted several familiar faces from competitors who had offered me positions after news of my patent. Victory spread throughout the industry. I had declined them all. Why leave the company I now controlled? The reception afterward buzzed with industry elites eager to speak with me. Among them was Catherine Harwood, CEO of Meridian Pharmaceuticals and Marcus's former mentor. Elise, she said, champagne flute in hand. Remarkable turnaround at Nexora. The industry underestimated you. The industry was not alone in that, I replied. Her smile tightened. Marcus always had a blind spot for details. A shame. Not a blind spot, I corrected. Arrogance. He believed rules existed for others, not for him. Catherine nodded once, then moved on. I knew she had been making discreet inquiries about bringing Marcus onto her board. My response had effectively ended that possibility. Back at Nexora, I implemented structural changes to prevent anyone from ever again consolidating the kind of unchecked power Marcus had wielded. I established an independent research oversight committee. I created a whistleblower protection program with direct board access. And most importantly, I overhauled our patent application process to ensure researchers received proper credit and compensation for their innovations. The quarterly earnings call exceeded all expectations. Neurovance XR had captured market share faster than projected, with patient outcomes exceeding clinical trial results. Our stock had not only recovered but surpassed its previous high. And now, I said toward the end of the call, I am pleased to announce the formation of the Nexora Science Foundation, which will fund promising research in neurodegenerative diseases at 5 major universities. The first university selected was where Marcus now taught business ethics, a cruel irony I could not resist. The announcement would force him to watch my success from painfully close proximity, perhaps even walking past a building with my foundation's name prominently displayed. One afternoon, Dr. Chen stopped by my office. At 72, he had returned to the chairman role with renewed vigor. I received a message from Marcus, he said, settling into the chair across from me. He wants to meet. Claims he has valuable insights about expanding Neurovance into international markets. I did not even look up from my tablet. Decline. Already done. Chen smiled. Just thought you should know. He is desperate to find a way back. There is no way back, I said. Not after what he did. Chen nodded approvingly. You have exceeded all my expectations, Elise. I always knew you were brilliant. I never realized how formidable you could be. That evening, I visited my old lab. The team was developing a companion therapy to Neurovance that showed promise for earlier stage intervention. I still made time for research. It remained my first love, even with the demands of corporate leadership. Dr. Sarah Lin, now my research director, updated me on their progress. We are weeks ahead of schedule. The preliminary results are better than we hoped. Document everything, I reminded her, especially your independent contributions. I have instructed legal to ensure all researchers receive proper attribution on patents going forward. That policy change has transformed morale, she said. Everyone feels valued now. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how completely my life had transformed in just 1 year, from being escorted out in disgrace to reshaping an entire company in my image. Marcus had sought to erase me, but instead had provided the catalyst for my greatest achievement. The next morning brought news that Meridian Pharmaceuticals, under Catherine Harwood's leadership, was facing a shareholder revolt after failed clinical trials and missed earnings targets. Rumors circulated that Marcus had been consulting with them informally on a similar drug delivery system. I made a single phone call to Michael Deering. You heard about Meridian? He asked. Yes, I replied. Are they using anything resembling our delivery system? My sources say they tried, failed spectacularly. Catherine is blaming bad advice from an unnamed consultant. I smiled. Have your fund make a sizable position in Meridian. I will be sending Catherine a proposal next week. Hostile takeover? He asked, interest piqued. No, I said. Strategic partnership, on our terms. By the time Marcus realized What was happening, it would be too late. His last potential industry ally would be under my influence. His consultant work would vanish. His academic position, predicated on his industry credentials, would come under scrutiny. I had not set out to systematically dismantle his life. He had forced that path when he tried to steal mine. As I hung up, my executive assistant informed me that a national business magazine wanted to profile me for their Women Changing Industries issue. Accept, I said. But make one condition clear. I will not answer any questions about Marcus Harrington. That chapter is closed. In truth, it was not closed. It would never be closed until he understood completely what his arrogance had cost him. But that realization would come gradually, over years, as he watched from the sidelines while I transformed his former company into something far greater than he could have built. That was the true victory. Not merely reclaiming what was mine, but creating something he could never have conceived. A company where science and integrity stood above profit margins, where researchers were valued as the true source of innovation. The patent framed on my wall was more than a legal document. It was a reminder. Always protect what matters most. For me, that was my work, my intellectual contribution to the world. Marcus had failed to understand its true value. His mistake. My triumph. The strategic partnership with Meridian Pharmaceuticals sent ripples throughout the biotech industry. Within months, our combined research capabilities had accelerated 3 promising candidates through early trials. Catherine Harwood remained CEO at Meridian, but the partnership agreement gave Nexora significant oversight of their research division. Marcus had indeed been consulting for them, a fact Catherine reluctantly confirmed during our first joint executive meeting. His advice nearly bankrupted us, she admitted. The delivery system modifications he proposed violated your patent in 3 different ways. Had we proceeded, we would have faced the same legal challenges Nexora did under his leadership. I simply nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Fortunately, that is behind us now. What I did not share was the satisfaction of knowing Marcus had attempted to replicate my work and failed spectacularly. The consultant fees he had collected from Meridian would be his last significant income from the industry. 2 years after reclaiming Nexora, I received an email from the tenure committee at Marcus's university. They were conducting a standard review and requested my professional assessment of his contributions to the pharmaceutical industry. I considered ignoring it entirely, but that would have been a missed opportunity. Instead, I crafted a response that was clinically accurate while devastating in its implications. While Mr. Harrington served briefly as CEO of Nexora Pharmaceuticals, his tenure was marked by legal complications arising from insufficient due diligence regarding intellectual property rights. The company's subsequent restructuring was a direct result of these oversights. I cannot speak to his academic qualifications, but his practical understanding of pharmaceutical research protection appears to have significant gaps. 3 weeks later, news circulated that Marcus had been denied tenure. His academic career, his last refuge, was now as precarious as his industry reputation. I took no public satisfaction in this development, but privately I allowed myself a moment of vindication. The man who had dismissed 15 years of my dedication as disposable was discovering that actions have consequences, often years after the initial transgression. The European Medicines Agency approved Neurovance XR that spring, opening an entirely new market for Nexora. At the London announcement event, I was approached by Julian Harrington, Marcus's younger brother and a respected regulatory affairs consultant. "Dr. Vega," he said, extending his hand, "congratulations on the approval." I accepted his handshake with professional courtesy. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington." "I want to apologize for my brother's actions," he continued, lowering his voice. "What he did to you and to Nexora was unconscionable." "Your brother's actions are his own," I replied evenly. "You have nothing to apologize for." He shifted uncomfortably. "Marcus has been trying to secure a position at several companies I consult for. Would you be willing to speak with him? He believes he could offer valuable insights into Nexora's international strategy." I met his gaze directly. "Mr. Harrington, your brother had his opportunity to demonstrate his value to Nexora. He chose instead to discard the person who created its most valuable asset. I am not interested in revisiting that relationship. Julian nodded, accepting the finality in my tone. I understand. I had to ask for family reasons. Family loyalty is admirable, I said, but it should never require you to compromise your professional integrity. As he walked away, I realized Marcus was now reduced to using family connections to attempt rehabilitation. Each door was closing, one by one. Back in the States, I expanded the Nexora Science Foundation, establishing research centers at 12 more universities and a patient assistance program that ensured Neurovance XR would be accessible to those without adequate insurance coverage. Dr. Chen smiled when I presented the program to the board. This brings us full circle, back to our original mission. With one important difference, I added. This time, the foundation of our work is protected. My one concession to personal indulgence was purchasing the penthouse of the building, where Marcus now rented a small apartment, having been forced to sell his mansion after his finances collapsed. I rarely stayed there, using it primarily for entertaining international partners when they visited. But the knowledge that I literally looked down upon him from above provided a certain poetic justice. The industry publication that had once featured Marcus accepting awards now ran a cover story titled The Vega Doctrine: How One Scientist Revolutionized Pharmaceutical IP Protection. The article detailed my journey from researcher to CEO, emphasizing the structural changes I had implemented at Nexora to protect intellectual contributions. It became required reading in pharmaceutical business programs, including the one where Marcus still clung to his non-tenured position. At the 3-year mark of my leadership, Nexora's market capitalization had tripled. Neurovance XR was the standard of care in 17 countries. Our research pipeline contained 5 promising candidates, all protected by a revolutionary patent strategy that ensured the scientists behind the discoveries shared in their success. I received a text message from Patricia Wu one evening. Thought you should know. MH applied for the general counsel position at Garner Biologics. They pulled his application after I made a casual inquiry about his understanding of patent law. I did not reply. There was no need. Patricia understood, as I did, that this had long since moved beyond personal vindication. We were systematically ensuring that someone who had demonstrated such flagrant disregard for intellectual property could never again hold a position of authority in our industry. Was it revenge? Perhaps. But it was also protection, not just for me, but for every researcher whose work could be stolen by the next Marcus Harrington if the industry failed to learn its lesson. The final blow came unexpectedly. A former Nexora board member who had approved my termination approached me at an industry fundraiser. I need to apologize, he said, the weight of 3 years of witnessing my success evident in his voice. We should have questioned Marcus more thoroughly. The company nearly paid the ultimate price for our negligence. Why now? I asked, genuinely curious. Because tomorrow the board that replaced us is announcing your 5-year contract extension and elevation to executive chairwoman. You have proven not just your scientific brilliance, but your leadership vision. What Marcus tried to destroy, you have transformed into something extraordinary. I accepted his apology with grace, but it meant little to me now. I had moved beyond needing validation from those who had failed to recognize my value. The next morning, as predicted, the board announced my new position and extended contract. The press release included a quote from Dr. Chen. Dr. Vega represents the ideal fusion of scientific brilliance and corporate leadership. Her patent strategy has become the industry standard for protecting innovation while rewarding the minds behind it. As I read the announcement from my office, the executive suite I had completely redesigned, I glanced at the framed patent on my wall. The small detail that had changed everything continued to remind me daily. Never leave your most valuable assets unprotected. That evening, I received a hand-delivered envelope. Inside was a letter from Marcus, the paper expensive, the handwriting precise. Dr. Vega, I write to congratulate you on your continued success and to express my sincere regret for the manner of your departure from Nexora under my brief leadership. I believe we both have valuable perspectives that could benefit the industry. Moving forward, would you consider meeting to discuss potential collaboration opportunities? Respectfully, Marcus Harrington. I placed the letter in my shredder without hesitation. There would be no meeting, No reconciliation, no opportunity for him to rehabilitate his reputation through association with me. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven, only instructed upon. The lesson was complete. Marcus Harrington had attempted to discard me and claim my life's work as his own. In return, I had not just reclaimed what was mine. I had demonstrated conclusively that he had always been expendable, while I had always been essential. That was not revenge. It was simply the correction of a profound error in judgment. One, he would remember for the rest of his career, watching from the sidelines as I transformed the company he had briefly imagined was his. 5 years to the day after Marcus had me escorted from Nexora, I stood at a podium in the grand ballroom of the Whitfield Hotel. The occasion was the Pharmaceutical Innovation Awards, where Nexora was receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award, typically given to companies with decades of history, not one transformed in just 5 years. Innovation is not merely about discovery, I said to the assembled industry elite. It is about protecting those discoveries and the people who make them. At Nexora, we have proven that ethical leadership and scientific advancement are not competing interests, but essential partners. From my vantage point, I could see Marcus at a distant table near the back, present only because the university where he taught required faculty attendance at industry events. His once expensive suits had been replaced by off-the-rack alternatives. His hair had grayed prematurely. He sat alone, nursing a glass of water while others around him enjoyed champagne. He had not been invited to any of the pre-event networking receptions. No one sought his opinion or his company. The industry had not forgotten what happened at Nexora under his brief, disastrous leadership. After the ceremony, as I circulated among well-wishers, Catherine Harwood approached with a younger man at her side. "Elise, allow me to introduce my son Andrew. He just completed his PhD in biochemistry and is interested in your research fellowship program." I smiled warmly at the young scientist. "We are always looking for innovative thinkers. Have your assistant send his credentials to Dr. Lin in our research division." Catherine beamed with maternal pride. "Thank you. Our partnership has been the best decision Meridian ever made." What remained unspoken was the alternative path. Had she continued her association with Marcus, instead of aligning with me, Meridian would likely have faced the same crisis that had nearly destroyed Nexora under his leadership. Later that evening, as my car waited outside, I noticed Marcus standing alone near the coat check. For a moment, our eyes met. He began to approach, but my security detail, a standard precaution for executives of my stature, smoothly intercepted, creating a barrier between us. I did not acknowledge him as I passed. There was nothing left to say. The following week brought news that the university had eliminated Marcus's department in a strategic realignment. His position was among those cut. The timing, immediately, after his public appearance at the awards, was not coincidental. No educational institution wanted association with someone whose name had become synonymous with intellectual property mismanagement. Dr. Chen visited my office that afternoon. At 77, he had reduced his operational role but remained a valued advisor. "Have you seen this?" he asked, forwarding an email from the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists. It was an ethics case study being distributed to all member organizations and universities. Though it used pseudonyms, the scenario was unmistakable. Our story, presented as a cautionary tale about intellectual property protection and executive accountability. "It appears you have become part of the curriculum," Chen said with quiet satisfaction. "We both have," I replied. "The lesson needed teaching." I received word from Patricia that Marcus had applied for a position with a pharmaceutical startup in Singapore, attempting to rebuild his career far from his reputation in the States. Within hours of his application, the company's leadership received anonymous emails detailing his history at Nexora, including court documents from our patent dispute. The offer was rescinded before he even boarded his flight for the final interview. I had not sent those emails. I did not need to. The industry had its own immune system now, recognizing and rejecting those who threatened its integrity. Marcus had become a case study in how not to manage innovation. His name alone triggered protective responses. 10 years after reclaiming Nexora, I accepted an invitation to deliver the commencement address at the university where Marcus had once taught. The building that housed the pharmaceutical business program now bore the name Nexora Innovation Center, funded by my foundation. Standing at the podium, looking out at the eager faces of graduates, I spoke about integrity, vision, and protection. Your ideas are your most valuable assets, I told them. Guard them carefully. Document everything. Understand that in moments of greatest vulnerability, foresight becomes your greatest strength. I did not mention Marcus by name. I did not need to. His cautionary tale had been integrated into the curriculum these students had just completed. After the ceremony, the dean informed me that Marcus had requested permission to attend. We declined, of course. His presence would have been inappropriate given your history. A wise decision, I said simply. That evening, I visited the Nexora Innovation Center, inspecting the state-of-the-art laboratories that would train the next generation of pharmaceutical researchers. In the main atrium hung a bronze plaque listing key contributors to pharmaceutical science. My name was prominently featured. Marcus Harrington's was conspicuously absent. The final chapter came unexpectedly. A journalist writing a book on ethical leadership in pharmaceuticals requested an interview about the Nexora Renaissance, as my tenure had been labeled. During our conversation, she revealed that she had interviewed Marcus as well. He still maintains that his intentions were misunderstood, she said, that the restructuring was necessary for the company's survival. And what conclusion have you drawn? I asked. That his version contradicts all evidence and testimony from everyone else involved. His inability to acknowledge his mistakes appears to be his most consistent trait. She hesitated, then added, he lives in a small apartment, now working as an anonymous consultant under a different name. Most of his clients have no idea who he once was. He asked me to tell you that he understands now what he destroyed. I absorbed this information without visible reaction. Will you tell him anything from me? If you wish. I considered carefully, then shook my head. No, there is nothing to say. As the journalist left, I returned to my office. No longer Marcus's old space, but a new executive suite built during Nexora's expansion. Nothing of his era remained in the building. Even the company logo had been redesigned, removing the last traces of his brief tenure. That night, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, looking out over the city. Somewhere below, Marcus Harrington lived in obscurity, his name expunged from the industry he had once thought to conquer. Everything he had attempted to take from me had returned to me multiplied. Everything he had valued, status, power, recognition, had been stripped from him. Not through malice on my part, but through the natural consequences of his own actions. I had simply refused to be his victim. The rest he had done to himself. I thought back to that day in his office when security waited to escort me out. How certain he had been of his power. How confidently he had dismissed 15 years of my work as disposable. He never bothered to check one little thing, the independent patent I had filed. That small precaution had not only saved my work, but transformed it into something greater than either of us had imagined. Nexora now employed thousands. Neurovance XR had improved millions of lives. The research programs I established continued to produce breakthroughs, all because I had seen what was coming and prepared accordingly. I did not need Marcus to suffer, for me to succeed. But there was undeniable satisfaction in knowing that the man who tried to discard me now lived in a world shaped entirely by my vision, one where his name had been systematically erased, while mine had become synonymous with innovation and integrity. It was not revenge I had sought. It was justice, the correction of a fundamental imbalance, the restoration of recognition to its rightful place. Looking out over the lights of the city, I raised my glass in a silent toast. Not to Marcus's downfall, but to the enduring power of foresight. The single quality that had transformed me from victim to victor, from dismissed researcher to industry leader. One small detail, overlooked by arrogance, had changed everything.